Now, I recently read how a company called Interana recently released a new version of its big data analytics platform for behavioural discovery and analysis. And essentially, Interana can analyse trillions of raw time series data points in just 1 to 2 seconds. And there's no need to work with a data scientist to extract or transform that data. And ordinary business users can ask question after question, getting answers about their customer behaviour, but in real time. And this is where things get interesting, because the platform was built by co-founder and CTO Bobby Johnson, who also headed up development of analytics tool at Facebook, including Scuba many moons ago. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way back to the US so we can speak with CTO Bobby Johnson, who's going to tell us all about Interana and their big reveal recently about the world's most advanced platform for behavioural discovery and analysis. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Bobby. Can you tell the listeners a little more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my background is I used to work at Facebook. I was the head of infrastructure there from sort of a few million users up to 1 billion. So did a lot of work on scaling there. And then a few years ago left to start Interana, which is a company I'm working on now where we do behavioral discovery and analytics. And what we mean by that is sort of taking what we call event data. So this is, anything that happens with a timestamp. So this could be a click or a swipe on a website. It could be a call to a call center. It could be a transaction, or often it's a mix of those things. And we pull that all together and we're able to let you look at how people are behaving or how devices are behaving in that data. So things like, what do people do before they churn? Where are people getting stuck in this onboarding flow? So things that have to do with sequences of events. We're able to pull in, this data is often very large, we're able to pull it in sort of at massive scale and then make those kinds of really valuable business questions accessible to everybody, not just data scientists, not just people who code. There's a visual interface where you can go explore through and find out, how people are interacting with your product or your service.
Wow, what a great history you've got there. There's not many people, I would imagine, that could say they've gone from scaling 1 million to 1 billion users like that. So I've got to ask, can you tell me more about your backstory from leading the development of analytics tools at Facebook, including Scuba, of course, which is Facebook's internal data analytics platform, to then going on to your time at Interana and the kind of problems that you set out to solve for your clients?
Yeah, so it was, we obviously learned a lot about just sort of the mechanics of how you deal with data at the scale, how you make it fast, how you make it manageable. But the other thing that was really interesting that we learned along the way was, seeing how people actually use this data to solve like real business problems. And the thing that was neat about Facebook is that we really did have almost everybody in the company was able to use data and base their decisions on that. And so we got to see over the years, how, mapping. And so when you have a business question, it usually starts out pretty vague. There's this thing I don't understand, or I want to get this number to go up, or I don't understand why this isn't working as well as it should. And so getting to see how, sort of going from those kind of questions into this is a specific set of analytic questions I'm going to ask in order to get my answer. And so we had, by the time I left Facebook, we had more than half the employees were active users of analytics tools. We learned a lot about how you make those things accessible so people can start with their broad questions and narrow down to finding an answer to something that they can actually do something about. Okay, I have a problem in this particular stage of this process, or, this group of people isn't working, and so I need to change something about how I either, message them or something on my product. So it was a lot of, over the years, sitting with people who had real pressing questions and figuring out how can we make the tool actually serve them.
Now, Interana also recently released a new version of its big data analytics platform for behavioural discovery and analysis. So can you tell me more about how it can analyse trillions of raw time series data points in just 1 to 2 seconds? And also how there's actually no need to work with a data scientist to extract or transform that data?
So the thing about event data and behavior is this data is really big. And it's one of the things people, a lot of big data is really time series data, because, rather than having, if you have 10 million users on your app, 10 million things isn't a big number, but if those people are clicking 1,000 times a day, that ends up being a really big number. And so it's, really important that we're able to ingest that, all of it, and then let you look across it. Because the other thing you find with behavior is that you don't know beforehand what's going to be interesting. So you can't just sort of say, oh, I'm going to summarize this. If I can count, how many times people clicked on a mobile app, but that's not useful. What I want to know is that when they went through these 3 steps, it turned out well. And when the second step was different, it was much less likely to work. And you've got to, and you don't know that coming in. So a really important part of the platform is that we're able to ingest this. We have customers doing billions of events a day, even as much as 1 billion an hour coming in. And then we let somebody scan across, query across that whole thing in a completely ad hoc way to say, to ask about whatever behavior they want. And then it's also really important that interface to that is visual. So you ask a lot of questions. Because again, you don't really know what you're looking for when you start. It's a series of iterative questions that leads you to what you're looking for. And if you have to stop and either, write a program or write a SQL query or go talk to somebody else who can do that, you might get a couple questions a day answered. Whereas we want people, sitting down in a session and asking dozens of questions.